Some things in Trumplandia are inexplicable. This week's edition, the president's ongoing claim that Alabama was at risk from Hurricane Dorian. It wasn't. Maybe he got some bad info from somebody. Maybe he made a mistake. Maybe he was confused. We don't know. But he was wrong. And since, for days and days, he's been insisting with fake visual aids in hand that he was right. It all began on Sunday morning. President Trump tweeted just before 11 o'clock in the morning, in addition to Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama will most likely be hit much harder than anticipated. That was not accurate. Yet he said it again later that day at the FEMA briefing from the White House.
And it may get a little piece of a great place. It's called Alabama, and Alabama could even be in for at least some very strong winds and something more than that.
Well, that was wrong. It gave birth to a lot of very funny memes, but the subject of the goof was too serious, so the National Weather Service swiftly corrected him, issuing a statement from the office in Birmingham. Alabama will not see any impacts from Dorian. We repeat, no impacts from Hurricane Dorian will be felt across Alabama. That could have been it. The end of it. Everybody makes mistakes. Instead, the next day, the president blamed the media for his own inaccurate warning and then started to rewrite history on the matter. Yesterday it continued, and he added doctored graphics to the narrative. The president on television took a National Hurricane Center forecast that somebody had doctored with a Sharpie or something. The forecast showed East Coast Dorian. The Sharpie's magical addition added the coast of Alabama on the Gulf Coast, completely Dorian free. Why would the President of the United States do this? He decries fake news that isn't and disseminates fake news that is. Think China pays the tariffs. The wall is going up. Historic inauguration crowds. Russia probe is a witch hunt. You need an ID to buy cereal. Noise from windmills causes cancer. It's endless. And now the Sharpie map that hurricanes Alabama. A reporter asked him about it.
That map that you showed today looked like it almost had like a Sharpie.
I don't know.
He doesn't know. But he won't let it go. Yesterday, he brought out another map and a statement that reads, this was the originally projected path of the hurricane in its early stages. As you can see, almost all models predicted it would go through Florida and hitting Georgia and Alabama. I accept the fake news apologies. This is one where he can apologize and just move on. That map was from the day hurricane became a hurricane, 8 days ago, August the 28th. It was 4 days old. At the precise time, he said Alabama would likely be hit harder than anticipated. And by then, it was fake news defined on a very serious subject. Yet he forged on. This morning, another statement. What I said was accurate. It wasn't, and it isn't. John Roberts is live at the White House. 4 days later, why is he still doing this?
You know, Shep, this is one of those things that probably, as you mentioned earlier, could have easily been dispatched with, but instead it has become more and more convoluted. You showed a graphic there from August the 28th. Let's go to actually the day that the president issued the tweet. Here's the 8 a.m. advisory, the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center on Sunday, September 1st. And you can see Hurricane Dorian forecast to stay well offshore. Let's even go back 3 hours earlier than that. This is the 5 a.m. advisory, which again has the track of Dorian staying well away from Alabama. Yet at 10:51 that very same morning, the president tweeted that Alabama was at risk of damage from Dorian, and then he pointed out at the FEMA briefing later on, he said that as well. Then yesterday, after being briefed on the hurricane, the president held up that projected hurricane track from Friday that had been extended with the pan to include the Florida Panhandle and parts of southeastern Alabama. Now, White House officials told me a little while ago that what had happened during that meeting was the president was getting his briefing from the acting DHS Secretary Kevin McAleenan, Pete Brown, his Homeland Security advisor, and the Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Carl Schultz. And they were talking about how dangerous and terrible it would have been had that forecast track from Friday gone across Florida, then into the Gulf of Mexico, and potentially on up into the Florida Panhandle, Alabama, maybe even as far west as Louisiana. And that to emphasize the point, someone drew on the map with a pen to include the Florida Panhandle and Alabama. Now look at this video. After that discussion, I'm told, the map had been put away there behind the president's right side and turned around. It wasn't up on an easel as previous forecast tracks had been. But then the president calls an audible and says to Kevin McAleenan, hey, show me that map. The president takes the map in hand, and that's when Sharpiegate was born. Now, the explanation was simple enough. Officials were discussing a map. Someone drew on it, the map was put away, and then, surprisingly, the president asked to see it. But that explanation got derailed when, as you pointed out later on in the afternoon, the president was asked about who put the Sharpie mark on the map, and the president said, I don't know. Now, White House officials told me that the dangers from that Friday forecast had really been impressed upon the president when he got to Camp David, and that maybe he still had that in his mind on Sunday when he tweeted, despite the fact that every forecast track should show Dorian staying well away from Alabama, that Alabama might be in danger. And those are the facts, Shep.
Yep, it is. Weird times. Thank you, John. Some stunning new images from Dorian's destruction. Man, it is apocalyptic, said one official there. So many houses and everything destroyed. And the scariest part of all of this